Imagine marching 20 miles in a single day, sleeping on the cold ground, and waking up knowing a battle might start at any moment. Now imagine doing all of that on a diet built around a biscuit so hard. Soldiers joked it could break teeth. During the American Civil War, more than 2 million soldiers depended on army rations to survive. The food had to be cheap, simple, and able to survive months in wagons, crates, and barrels. Fresh food rarely lasted long in an army on the move, so soldiers learned to live on whatever could survive the journey. And most days, that meant a very familiar menu. Hardtack. If there was one food every Civil War soldier knew, it was hardtack. Hardtack was a simple biscuit made from flour, water, and a little salt. No yeast, no fat, no flavor. The dough was rolled flat, cut into squares, and baked again and again until every bit of moisture was gone. The result was a cracker so tough that soldiers joked it could break teeth. But that toughness was exactly the point. Hardtack could survive heat, rain, rough transport, and months in storage, sometimes even years. Because it lasted so long, it became one of the most common foods in a soldier's daily ration. Soldiers even gave the biscuits their own nicknames. Some called them sheet iron crackers, others preferred tooth dullers. Unfortunately, the soldiers weren't always the only ones eating them. After months in storage, many biscuits arrived with tiny passengers already inside, weevils and worms. Veterans developed their own methods for dealing with the problem. One common trick was to tap the biscuit against a tin plate or the edge of a table. The impact often knocked loose the insects hiding inside the holes. Another solution was even simpler. Soak the hardtack in water, coffee, or soup until it softened enough to chew. For many soldiers, dunking it into a cup of hot coffee was the easiest way to make the biscuit edible. And when that still wasn't enough, soldiers often found creative ways to cook it. Salt pork. Hardtack usually came with another staple of army life, salt pork. This wasn't fresh meat. Pork was packed tightly into barrels and buried in thick layers of salt. The salt preserved it so well that the meat could survive long campaigns without spoiling. Flavor, however, was another story. The meat was often incredibly salty and sometimes unpleasantly greasy. Many soldiers boiled it first to remove some of the salt. Others sliced it and fried it in a pan over the campfire. Whatever fat rendered out of the pork became valuable cooking grease. In camp kitchens, nothing went to waste. That grease often ended up flavoring other foods, especially the ever-present hardtack. Coffee. If hardtack fed the body, coffee kept the army moving. Union soldiers in particular depended heavily on coffee rations. In fact, coffee became so important that some soldiers claimed they would rather skip a meal than miss their daily cup. Green coffee beans were often issued whole. Soldiers roasted them in frying pans, crushed them with rifle butts or rocks, and brewed the grounds directly in tin cups. Coffee was everywhere, before a march, after a battle, late at night around the campfire. Some soldiers even roasted their beans in tin cans or over open coals before grinding them. The smell of fresh coffee drifting through a camp became one of the most familiar parts of army life. Some veterans later joked they could survive a day without food, but not without coffee. Beans. Beans were another reliable ration. They were cheap, filling, and easy to transport in large sacks. In camp, soldiers usually boiled them in large kettles with pieces of salt pork. The result was a simple stew that could feed an entire company. Cooking often happened in large iron pots hanging over campfires. When the beans were ready, soldiers lined up with the tin plates or cups to receive their portion. After days of hardtack alone, even plain beans tasted like a proper meal. Rice. Rice sometimes appeared in the rations as well, especially for Union troops. It cooked quickly and helped stretch small amounts of meat into larger meals. A handful of rice added to a pot could make a thin stew feed twice as many soldiers. Rice was also easy to transport and didn't spoil easily, which made it useful for long supply lines. When supplies were good, rice helped break the endless routine of biscuits and pork. Desiccated vegetables. Fresh vegetables were difficult to supply to armies constantly on the move, so the military tried something unusual. Desiccated vegetables, factories dried cabbage, carrots, onions, and turnips, then compressed them into dense blocks. These vegetable bricks were lightweight and easy to transport in large quantities. When dropped into boiling water, the mixture slowly softened and turned back into a kind of soup, at least in theory. Soldiers weren't always impressed. Some complained that the smell reminded them of boiled hay. Others joked that the strange blocks looked more like animal feed than food. Still, they were meant to solve a serious problem. Without fresh produce, many soldiers risked vitamin deficiencies during long campaigns. Cornmeal. Cornmeal became especially important for Confederate troops. With wheat supplies limited in the South, corn was often easier to obtain. Soldiers mixed cornmeal with water and cooked it into a thick porridge, known as corn mush. The mixture was simple, but it filled empty stomachs. In many camps, cornmeal became one of the most reliable foods available. Johnny cakes. Sometimes that same cornmeal mixture was flattened and fried in a pan. These simple corn cakes were known as Johnny cakes. They cooked quickly over a fire and could be eaten with whatever else a soldier had available. If there was a little bacon grease or molasses, the cakes tasted even better. For many soldiers, a hot Johnny cake straight from the pan counted as a good day's cooking. Skilly-gally. After eating hardtack day after day, soldiers started getting creative. One popular trick became known as skilly-gally. The method was simple. Break hardtack into pieces, fry it in a pan with salt pork grease. Cook it until the edges begin to brown. The grease softened the biscuit and gave it a much-needed boost of flavor. Compared to plain hardtack, skilly-gally felt almost like real cooking. For soldiers who had eaten the same rations for weeks, even a small improvement like that made a difference. Camp stew. Not every meal came from official rations. Whenever soldiers had the chance, they improved their food with whatever they could find. A chicken from a nearby farm, fresh vegetables from a garden, berries gathered along the roadside. All of it might end up together in a large kettle hanging over the fire. These improvised meals were often known simply as camp stew. No two versions were exactly alike, but after weeks of army rations, even a rough stew could feel like a feast. As the war dragged on, supplies sometimes grew scarce. Confederate soldiers especially struggled with shortages during the later years of the conflict. In some camps, daily rations shrank to little more than cornmeal and small pieces of meat. Hunger became a constant companion, yet soldiers still marched, drilled, and fought, often on food that would barely count as a snack today. By modern standards, Civil War rations were incredibly simple. Hard biscuits, salted meat, beans, cornmeal, and coffee. But those humble foods kept entire armies alive during one of the most brutal conflicts in American history. And for the soldiers who depended on them, a cup of hot coffee and a piece of hardtack didn't just mean breakfast. Sometimes it meant having enough strength to survive another day of war.